If you feel like you just can't focus the way you used to, you need to know something. It's not your fault. Your attention is being taken away from you. If you've ever picked up your phone and 30 seconds later you just forget what you're doing, then yeah, I'm talking about you. Over the years, maybe your attention span's gotten a little shorter, your memories lost a little bit of sharpness, and sometimes it might even feel like there's something wrong. But here's a question. What if there isn't? I just listened to a book called Stolen Focus by Johann Hari, and let me tell you, it changed the way that I see this, because I've struggled with it my entire life. This gradual change in behavior we've undergone in the last 30 years, it starts with technology, but even if you remove every app on your phone, I can tell you what'll happen. You'll still have trouble focusing. Some experts would call this a rapid exhaustion of your attention as a resource, because there are multiple forces fighting against your attention daily, some of which you may not have ever considered. You know, there's evidence that a broad range of things in our lives are getting faster. We talk 10% faster now than we did in the 1950s, and we also walk 10% faster in city areas. Cars are faster than they used to be. Modern life has led to faster rates of chewing our food. We even eat faster. But we don't realize that all of the speed can really only take us so far. You see, there's a limit. At some point, it needs to stop. What happens then? Well, we can't say for sure. One researcher in the book argued there could form a division between an upper class of people who can live within the limits of their attention and a lower class who will have less attention to resist living deeper and deeper in their own screens. But for now, what is all this about, attention being engineered against us? Let's start with a devilish word that goes by the name exhaustion. When you go to sleep at night, it might feel like something you have to wrestle yourself into and fight your way out of. If that's you or someone close to you, you should know that they're not alone. 40% of Americans are now chronically sleep deprived, and only 15% of us wake up feeling refreshed every day. The amount of sleep we get on average has been slashed by 20% in the last 100 years. So what do we all rely on during the day? Simple. The most common thing is caffeine. But what's wrong with caffeine, Sam? It keeps me awake and alert, doesn't it? It does. I drink a lot of caffeine myself. But awake and alert are not the same thing as focused. What caffeine does to the brain, it can be perfectly compared to what happens when you're driving and you put a sticky note on the fuel gauge. You can't see how much fuel's left. What caffeine does is it hides from your brain exactly how tired you are. So your body isn't aware of it, and that's why you just end up more wiped out when it wears off and all this time has passed. Caffeine is so deeply ingrained into our work culture that doctors, the medical professionals who are experts on why we shouldn't abuse it, will, for the most part, abuse it themselves just to launch their own careers. How messed up is that? A repeating cycle here is that poor sleep leads to worse focus. If you can get rats to learn a maze during the day and you check their brain activity the same night while they sleep, you know what you're going to see? They will be retracing their steps one by one, unconsciously, going over what they learned. Kids actually function very similarly to this, but the less you sleep, the less it happens for you. But even if you get a good night's sleep, there still are devices. And I'll say that because the author really put his sanity on the line to rule it out for sure. This man underwent a brutal, disciplined treatment that's really unheard of today. A digital detox. He gave up internet use completely for 3 months. He went 3 months in a remote location in Cape Cod with a phone and laptop that were not internet enabled at all. As you can imagine, it was not easy for him to find those. Did it work? We'll talk about it later in the video, but for now, let's talk about the real reason he did it, because the real reason is what happens when we open our devices. Now, really hear this, because we're about to enter a different level of cyberspace right here, okay? When you unlock your phone, the way you get your information is more important than the information itself. What do I mean? Well, TV, for example, it tells you that the world is fast and it's about surfaces and appearances. Twitter says that the world can and should be understood in short 280 character statements, and it's important that people immediately have something to say about them. Facebook says your life should be displayed. And it matters that people have a reaction to these highlights, because if you look at and react to theirs and vice versa, that means you're friends now, right? Even the definition of what a friend is has had a change in depth here. Not in the real world, but here. Instagram says it's important how you look to others and whether they like it. It creates a world altogether unlike our own, where we are subjected to more hollowed out friendships, forced opinions, outrageously unrealistic beauty standards, and the depth is just ripped out from underneath us. This is why some people call this the shallows. What makes these messages wrong is that when you really think about them, really, literally, as in grounded in reality and not online, they are attention depriving, and they can really degrade the quality of your thinking into this dangerous recipe for unhappiness. But here's the part that really floored me. This is actually how its own designers feel about it. Yeah, get this. The people who develop these apps and devices do not even agree with using them. Isn't that insane? What, you don't believe me? That's fine, I don't either, but don't take it from me. Sean Parker, a primary Facebook investor, told us that the creators wanted to know how can we consume as much time and attention as possible. So they exploited human vulnerabilities, and then, you know what this guy said? God only knows what it's doing to our children's brains. This takes the cake. Tony Fadell, co-inventor of the iPhone, with a hell of a mic drop, will on occasion wake up in cold sweats thinking that what we brought to the world, his words, was a nuclear bomb that can blow up people's brains and reprogram them. Tony Fadell's a gangster. James Williams, a former Google strategist, he once asked a room of tech designers, how many of you want to live in the world that you're designing? The room went silent, and nobody raised their hand. But here's where it gets a little creepy. Grab your popcorn, folks. This is where we're gonna enter the back rooms of this whole operation. And just so you know, this is not speculation. This guy interviewed people who played a significant role in its development. So get this. We all know that these companies, they make more money the more time we spend on their apps, right? Sure, we all know that, but this money is made in two ways. The first one's advertising, of course, but the other one is a little bit darker than that. And here it is. Every little bit of your activity on these apps gets scanned, organized, and stored to build a profile of you that can be sold to advertisers who want to target you. Here's how one developer explained it. In every one of these servers, there is a voodoo doll of you. At first, it doesn't really look like you, but then it starts tracking what you click on and everything about you online as it unfolds, and then the doll starts to look more like you. Then, when you go to Instagram, they wake the doll up, and then they test hundreds of thousands of posts against it to figure out what's going to make its arm move in this direction or twitch in that direction. And then they put what they think you want to see based on all of that information in front of you, anticipating that that is what you'll spend your money on next. Now, this is a creepy way to look at it. I mean, come on, really, Sam? Isn't that kind of dramatic? A voodoo doll? It is, honestly. And if you think about it, isn't this just marketing? I mean, marketing, it's kind of just a way of figuring out what people want and then offering it to them. That's been going on for 100 years. It's nothing new. No, it's not new. But if you want to talk new, I'll tell you something about it that freaking transcends the definition. Have you ever felt like social media is recording your conversations? If the answer is yes, it's not just you. In fact, over half of America agrees with you. So let's say you're talking to someone in the supermarket about these 2 flavors of Girl Scout cookies. And then the next time you open TikTok, the very first thing you see is someone reviewing and comparing them. There's no way you're not being recorded, right? I mean, come on. Well, get this. Let's just put this to sleep here. You're not. You're not being recorded, folks. This business model does not listen to your conversations. What's really happening is that it's so effective that it predicts that you're having this conversation at this place with this person about this topic at this time. That's how well it knows you. Really think about that. No one in your life could ever know about that conversation in the checkout line if you didn't tell them. But the platforms basically virtually already knew about it before it even happened. That's what's so concerning about it. Not to mention the technical name for this, coined by a Harvard professor, they call this surveillance capitalism. It's fitting, isn't it? You want to know why the author recommends banning this? The answer seems obvious, and it is. Without distraction, these apps are just going to die off. I mean, let's be real here. Phones, internet, incentivization, they're just not designed the way they should be for the benefit of humanity. Being pro-tech or anti-tech, to some degree, we're all pro-tech, aren't we, at this point? It's about what tech and why we use it that really counts here. Remember when I was saying that this guy went 3 months without any internet? Here's what happened. After he got rid of these distractions, his brain started changing. It started getting a lot clearer. And right after he got home, he went back to his old ways, spent how much time online every day, and when he realized it, he came to the conclusion that whether you go all tech or no tech, for almost anyone nowadays, neither of these is truly sustainable. So what does he do now? Well, nowadays, to maintain his focus, he locks his phone in a safe for at least 4 hours a day, and it seems to do him wonders. But tech is not the only issue at hand. Here's where the unexpected tends to roll out, because this next part is not even about your phone. And what's really strange to me about these is that they're not even interdependent, but they do all share similar harmful effects. So if you get rid of one of them completely, the rest will still be there. You ever think about what you eat every day and how it affects your ability to focus? We put stuff in our bodies daily. It's like putting shampoo in a car engine. I know we have a lot of car metaphors in this video. Thankfully, cars are not the issue, but we're eating things that are so far from what's in nature that it's near impossible to determine what the original ingredients even were. Just like how every time you put your phone down, there are 1,000 engineers trying to make sure you pick it back up again. Every time you try to give up processed food, there are 1,000 marketers trying to make sure you don't. Most people don't own farms, so they can't just grab a bunch of carrots from the hen house or whatever the freak. Obviously, I didn't grow up on a farm. Most people need to get their fresh fruits and vegetables from the grocery store, which, if you know a thing or two about advertising, is kind of like trying to find a safe place while walking into a minefield. The author suggests that these machines that advertise and market all these products, they need to be shut down for good, so that they don't screw over the attention of the next generation. For more information on this and the history of it, Salt, Sugar, Fat by Michael Moss is a diabolical book to check out. From my understanding, pollution is just as bad for our attention as food, if not worse. In fact, pollution is quite possibly the biggest thorn in the side of this video. Every day in major cities, people breathe in like chemical soups that we're not designed to withstand, made up of the essential everyday nutrients like platinum, iron, nickel, and even something called black carbon. This causes chronic inflammation, which over time basically increases the risk of dementia and Alzheimer's. In fact, there's a correlation between pollution in big cities and their children's school performances. A big contender in particular is lead, which is poisonous, which is something that we have been well aware of for 2,000 years and counting. And despite this, we have used it for centuries all over the world, in houses, pipes, fuel, and it's stolen so much focus all over. I don't think we realize how serious it is. Not to mention, kids absorb it more easily than adults. But hey, speaking of kids, a study in Rochester, New York found 1 in 3 of them to have lead poisoning. And that exposure to lead as a child can make you 2.5 times more likely to get ADHD. The saddest part about it all is that we can eat bio, we can air out our homes, we can live in the country, but to the individual, there isn't much of an escape from these chemicals at all. The best we can really do from here with this is to make sure that each new chemical is also studied in these specific aspects before it's released for public consumption, and that these studies are not funded by the companies who sell products that use it as an ingredient. We have to learn from this, and we have to get some laws passed. When we did this with lead, it did us wonders. We can't just keep doing this to ourselves, because this is about more than just productivity or something like that. We're talking about how you think and reflect and experience this life as we know it. We can't just ignore the fact that by the day, we're letting this ability that we have to deeply think just slip through our fingers like a fistful of sand. A lot of advice online comes down to being disciplined. But isn't this just some form of cruel optimism? I did it, so you should be able to. What I wonder is, does it truly need to be that difficult? Furthermore, is it actually that simple? I don't think it is. And I also don't think discipline is the problem. I think a lack of discipline is the symptom, but that's it. Merely forcing ourselves to compensate for not being able to stay focused, more likely than not, it's going to go right over our heads. You can reduce notifications, you can protect the time you spend in deep focus, and you're quite possibly better off being intentional with your technology so you can live within the limits of your attention as a resource, right? But you gotta admit, I mean, it's time to turn down the frickin' fire hoses here and just sip the water at our own pace. But most importantly, we have to be kind to ourselves. We don't need to fix everything. We just need space. If you feel like you lost your ability to focus, chances are you haven't. But you also haven't been told what's really happening instead. You live in an environment that's working against it. And once you see that, like really see it, you can't unsee it, but you can start taking it back. And once you do, game, set, match. And I'll also drop a link to this amazing book, Stolen Focus by Johann Hari, in the description if you want to check it out and read the reviews. So that's what I have to say about that. I hope you folks enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something from it. If you did, please make sure to let me know in the comments below. Smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, so you can see more of the information that we're putting out on this channel. And if you want to turn on that notification bell to get a notification whenever I drop new videos, that would mean the world to me. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You can find me everywhere, and I will see you then.